Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, the second part of my interview. I don't know if he was interviewing me or I was interviewing him, but Phil had some questions for me. We had a good chat. Thanks, sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Tops, Upper Deck, and Panini. So thanks, Phil, and thanks, everybody. Here's the final part of the conversation. Okay, I got a hypothetical for you. Top attacks you and says, in your next show in Oklahoma City, we'd like to bring some signers for you to sign some of the Marvel products. We've got some superheroes. How much are you paying for the superheroes that are going to print out some of these? And I don't know if they'd be in costume or not, but is that a mess or what? That you can have an autograph of a character by a person that's not even playing the character, perhaps. Seems tricky to me.
Topps just took over for Marvel. Started that first set that came out, and it just dumbfounds me that there's a Captain America autograph and he draws a shield on it, and it's probably an intern sitting at Topps just signing stuff.
But would it be okay if he was the stuntman? You want to have some connection to the to the person. If he's the voiceover, if he's the writer, I want some connection to the action and not just somebody, like you said, intern that's got artistic ability to fake a signature.
Yeah, but I think somewhere in there, it's got to be Bob Smith, voice of Captain America. You know what I mean? Something like that, I'd be okay with. Yeah. So just Captain America and Iron Man. It ain't Robert Downey Jr. signing them.
And I think the cards in question, if people want to dig them out, this audio podcast, but if you look on the back of the card, there's ample opportunity to explain, and they don't explain. They're very cryptic. I just believe in truth in packaging, because I think then you know what you got, and you shouldn't pay a lot extra, even though if I put it up on my card wall, people would think, oh, wow, how do you get Captain America to sign that? I don't think anybody did, but it's an attractive card. But again, Topps was one of the facsimile autograph companies back in the 50s. They had facsimile autographs, 52 Topps. I don't know that kids were confused for very long, because it was a representation of the guy's signature, but it was on every card.
What's wild is I don't know if you remember the Binghamton show in Oklahoma City. It was big back when I was a kid. Man showed up one day, and for some reason I have a Spider-Man autograph card to this day. It was just probably a random guy in a costume showed up, but I kept it. Who knows?
Who knows, right? You could send it in for authentication. But now with Spider-Man, there have been several iterations of Spider-Man. And so do they have to have exemplars of each of the movie stars that played Spider-Man? Down here, I can't remember what the Thunder have, but the Mavs have Mavs Man and Champ. And there have been more than one of those guys. And I knew the original Mavs Man personally. And I know he signed a card for me, but he signs it Mavs Man. And what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, we have Rumble, and it's been a girl, it's been a guy. I'm with you. What do you do?
But my buddy, he didn't want to divulge his real name. That's what they wanted him to do.
For the San Diego Chicken, that dude's got a beautiful signature, and he signs his full name and San Diego Chicken. Now, I can't remember his name, but I've got a couple of his autographs that I've done through the mail.
I'm going to pretend like I'm rich. It's Ted Giannoulis.
Giannoulis, that is correct. And he's got a beautiful signature.
Yeah, he's the original amazing mascot that it fully became a draw himself. Okay, you had another question about Broders, and you were saying that you liked some of the Broders, and there's a huge distinction that is not always well known between Rob Broder, who's the son, who was prolific in mass producing modern player sets on demand and custom cards that were not licensed. His dad, Ed Broder, my age-ish, and was an outstanding photographer out on the Pacific Coast. And he did some unlicensed sets that were Pacific Coast League oriented. Some of them are quasi reprints. Those are the ones I think that ComC will list. ComC makes a distinction between reprints or unlicensed stuff that's post-6 and pre-1986. That's the way it breaks for the Broders. In the 70s and the 60s, the Broder stuff is more limited. He wasn't trying to mass produce them. He was trying to make cards for his buddies, I think, that were obscure sets.
It's wild. It's like every price guide became a Beckett. Tough stuff. It was just a Beckett. You got a Beckett. It's a price guide. Broders became every reprint card. When I was a kid, you'd go to a table and they'd have some random Michael Jordan slam dunking a galaxy ball, and they considered them Broders, but they had nothing to do with a lot of those.
The reason was they didn't want to be discovered. You get in trouble if you pretend like it is licensed. So they didn't say it was licensed. And they also didn't put a lot of identifying information like their address or the name of the producer on most of those because they didn't want lawsuits against them. That's why they all became known as Broders, because Broder was the original prolific producer. But it's very different from Ed Broder, the dad, who was an advanced collector himself. Rob Broder was opportunistic, and it's unclear he might be open to civil litigation because I don't know that he committed a crime. He didn't appropriate their material. He had the theory that he had fair use to take pictures of popular players and put them on cardboard and sell them for pretty cheap because they weren't expensive.
Yeah.
You could get big stacks of them, but they were all over the country in the heyday. And we, as a company, when we were doing all our price guide stuff, we just did not price them because the reprint ability of it, if they ran out of Barry Bonds or Don Mattingly in 87 or 88 or whatever it was, he could just print some more. But he wasn't baiting and switching. Everybody knew that. That put a ceiling on the price that you could charge because you could say they could always get some more. In fact, they could just print some more. Again, his defense was he was making it available to people at a reasonable price. When some of the regular cards were going crazy, the Broders looked like a bargain. And in some cases were very attractive and very simple. They weren't a chrome or prism or any dramatic treatments. They were just basic cards. You also asked me if you were picking up an unopened pack of cards in the 60s, and if you knew it was a 7th series, is there a possibility you could get cards from other series in the pack? Number one, it would be a mistake. Unless it was in one of these fun packs or holiday packs. Sometimes they did things at the end of the year where they just would conglomerate some cards or some packs and throw them in a cello baggie so you could see it was packs. You maybe could get different series there, but normally every series had that series and frequently also a checklist for the next series. So you would know what to look for. So that'd be the only card that might not be in that 1 to 88 or something like that. In my neighborhood, it was just so frustrating because you didn't know when they were going to come out. And sometimes they'd skip a series. They're printed in sheets. The first series was a sheet, and then they chop them up and then randomize them into packs and then box them up and ship them out. And then a week later, they do the same thing with the second series. So there shouldn't have been any residue.
So how long is that run from series 1 to series 7? Are we talking months, 2, 3 months, 4 months?
Maybe 3 or 4 months. It's the spring and early summer, every couple of weeks. And I'm sure Topps, did they let series 1 go a little bit longer? Maybe. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 2 weeks be 14 weeks. That'd be like 3.5 months. Because school, March, April, May, a little bit of June. My school went into June when I was in school. But once you disperse for the summer, I really don't remember much football until closer to the fall. Topps considered themselves to be marketing to kids. So I'm sure they tried to marry it up with the school year. They did not think their customer was an adult. And probably in the 50s, they were right. As I've said, I was in a different school every year from like 4th grade to 8th grade, 4th through 8th. They had a different school every year. And so a different neighborhood, it was the same drill. The cards came out, even though it was a different location, different state sometimes. At some point, the buzz was everybody knew, hey, this year's cards are here. And a few weeks later, second series is out. You had to get all your first series cards while you could, because when they were gone, they didn't reload. They got the next.
So then it's just trading, right? Trading, hoping you get what you.
In those days, the trading within the year, like a first series for a 7th series, that wasn't a big deal, or 4th series, 5th series, whatever. The series didn't matter if it was that year of cards, and the better players were held in higher esteem, and local players for the cities I was in, where I was near the Pirates or near the Cubs and White Sox, near Chicago at one point. But the previous year's cards were junk. It's like junk wax. The previous year, why would I want those? Almost like, why are you bringing those old cards around? Now, if it was 10 years old, like your older brother, that was cool because you hadn't seen them. But if you're 10 or 11, 12 years old and you brought the previous year's cards, you're not with it. Now we know the older, the better, generally. But in those days, if it's not new, it was commoditized, Phil.
We're almost to that again, Doctor. As soon as that set comes out, the next one, nobody, not with the breakers, they still open it, but it's not the hotness that it's
driven a little bit by rookies, but also just the flavor of the moment. But my point is, the hobby did not have multiple brands. Topps just had one brand. So the excitement was the new series. Whereas now the excitement is a different product from the same company. That's good.
Organization. I listened to one with you in Burbank and how you organize versus So let's say you buy a big deal. If you bought a warehouse full of cards, where would you start?
I got to be careful answering this question. My awesome wife is going to think, oh, he's thinking about buying a warehouse of cards. He set up Phil with this question. No, Phil, you're just hitting me on this. But if I buy a few thousand cards, now I don't have a mess, but other people don't always understand my organization. I know where everything is. You've heard that before. So if I bought a few thousand cards at a show, which I do, first thing I'm going to do is get it into sports, where he goes next into sets, what set it's from and what year and all that. I ignore that. I go strictly for the player, and I alphabetize the good players and the players that are not high demand. I put in a separate group and I deal with those separately. So I'm constantly alphabetizing the better players and then grouping them. Some will send it for grading. Some of them I'll put on ComC. Some I'll sell on eBay in player groups. But the players that are low demand, those are tricky, because if it doesn't go on ComC, I'm not going to set up at shows. And so Rich is very insistent. Don't buy more base cards. 2 years ago, I bought a large group of cards, like buying out somebody's dollar box at a price that was too good to refuse. But it took me a lot of time. I'm sure it took me less time than somebody else that doesn't have a system. But that was fun for me. If I go through a dollar box at a show, I'm quickly picking out the ones that I think are interesting. And I've had times where they said, why don't you just buy the whole thing? And I said, if the price is right, I would do that. Then I would take them home. The fun of the hobby for me is sorting the cards and then finding a new home for the ones I don't want. I don't need to make money on the ones I don't want. I'm going to make money or get my enjoyment out of the ones that it turns out were the better variations that I noticed, that I think, hey, that's a local college or somebody that I know. That's fun for me. And you got a good chance of doing that if you buy a large lot of cards. And I have room, but I'm still abiding by my 1% a month rule. I have 1% less of cards, but I'm buying 0.1% a month. So I still have to aggressively winnow and vet and purge and parse. So I do that. What are you doing with your card? Your main platform is setting up at shows? Or are you just very active on buying?
I'm probably too active on buying, according to my wife, the 12 envelopes a day from eBay. But I do the shows. And a lot of times, if it's stuff after I've gone through it a few times, I'll dump it to Kevin and let him do what he'll do with it. But we've got a couple guys that buy bulk. And then I got a deal not too long ago from a friend of mine. It was cards that a estate sale had. They tried to sell them for $20 a binder, and it was a bunch of 90s stuff. It had a small stack of vintage in it, 58s, 53s, 54s, rough stuff. And the guy just gave it to me. They were going to throw it away because they'd been through so many estate sales. And I'm like, I'll take it. So I started going through it, and I ended up finding a 54 Aaron that somebody had cut down to fit into. So, I mean, yes, but it's still an Aaron rookie. His eyeballs are going to white it out with an eraser. But I'm going to sit it in and get it graded. Even if it comes back authentic, I'm not out anything really.
Let me know if it comes out better than authentic. That sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, it's bad. It won't come out any better than that. Then Facebook, what do you do with 90 Donners cards? Do you pull out the Walton Gonzalez because I like him? You played Oklahoma City?
I don't want to buy a general collection, but if I were to buy something, and it's that other side of the coin. I can't really look just for OU players. I need to have a broad base of players and types of cards I'm looking for to make it worth it to go through a dollar box and pull out enough cards an hour that I'm not just leafing through cards and not having any product pulled. The message everybody needs to get, not just from this podcast, is that the money is made so frequently in the old days and even now. Money is made on the buying. You've got so many more options. If you don't buy right, if you buy something that's hot and then hope it gets hotter, like I said, I rarely buy a card. I usually buy cards. I buy collections. I buy groups because I enjoy going through them.
Buying right is the key. And that's my problem too, is I can't let a good deal go by.
The man in the house of cards.